Welcome to Talking Smarks here on AIM Student Radio, the way radio should be. I'm Josh. It is Tuesday, July 26, 2022. We are just a few days removed from the most seismic shift in the professional wrestling industry. The biggest seismic shift that we've seen in at least 30 years, if not more. I'll tell you where I was on Friday. I was just at work, just at my day job, just the usual, thought, okay, the last few Fridays have been kind of hectic in the professional wrestling industry. How much crazier can it get? I should have kept my mouth shut. I got a message from a Facebook group that I follow that just follows professional wrestling. And it had an image of a tweet. And this tweet came from none other than Vince McMahon himself. I'm pulling it up here right now. At 77, time for me to retire. Thank you, WWE Universe. Then, now, forever, together. Hashtag WWE, hashtag thankful. People fake tweets all the time. People Photoshop tweets all the time. I thought this was fake. I pulled up my own Twitter app. Went onto our page. I pulled up Vince McMahon's Twitter account. This tweet was no joke. Vince McMahon retired. I will say it again. Vince McMahon retired. The king of the professional wrestling industry, the man who made it what it is today, has stepped down. It had been long rumored, it had been long believed that he was going to die in that chair in gorilla position, that he was never going to give up that seat, but he has. More than likely, this is a result of the allegations that have been surfacing against Vince McMahon throughout the years. Oh, and it's not over for him yet. No. Let me pull up another tweet that did end up appearing here that was also regarding Vince McMahon. This comes from Brandon Thurston. WWE's 8K, that's a financial statement, states the company found $14.6 million in payments by Vince McMahon, quote unquote, that should have been recorded as company expenses. WWE will reissue financial statements for 2019, 2020, 2021, and Q1 2022. What were those payments, Vince? Were these more allegations, more cover-ups, more NDAs? No one knows for sure. I'm guessing within the next few weeks, months, we will find out. But the fact of the matter is, Vince McMahon has retired from WWE, and this isn't just, oh, he's stepping away. No, he has relinquished the keys to the castle. He relinquished his role as the head of creative, which he still held even though he stepped down as CEO a couple of weeks ago. Now, I know what you're asking. Wait, who's gonna fill that position? Who? We are getting co-CEOs. Stephanie McMahon, who was already named the interim CEO of WWE and chairwoman while the investigation was ongoing. As far as we know, the investigation is still ongoing. Stephanie will be co-CEO with Nick Khan. Who is Nick Khan, you ask? Nick Khan has been with WWE over the last couple of years. Many believe him to be at least partially responsible for the massive influx of releases that we've gotten over the last couple of years, as well as the billion-dollar streaming deal to put the WWE Network on Peacock. The man's a savvy businessman. He knows what he's doing. He's only been in the company a handful of years, and he's got the keys to the castle, the keys to the kingdom. John Laurinaitis, who was also embroiled in the original Wall Street Journal scandal regarding the paralegal in 2019, it appears he's gone. It was revealed that Triple H would be taking his role as Executive Vice President of Talent Relations. That was Friday. I ended up watching the first part of SmackDown on Friday night. Who comes out but Stephanie McMahon, informing the audience that Vince has retired. Thanking him for the years of service, letting him know, hey, this is a company that Vince created. Got the crowd to chant, thank you, Vince, which, it's a double-edged sword for me. Yes, Vince McMahon was responsible for many of the professional wrestling moments that I've loved throughout the years, but also at the same time giving everything that's being uncovered, and undoubtedly more is going to be uncovered. It's hard for me to say thanks without at the same time being like, thank you, but there's also all this other stuff, you know? So, like I said, it's a double-edged sword for me. This was on Friday. I thought, okay, well, here we go, the beginning of a new era. Yesterday morning, it was announced that Triple H is taking over as the head of creative in WWE. I can't tell you how excited I am for this. And I know what you're thinking, but Josh, you spend so much time talking about AEW and Impact and Ring of Honor and New Japan. Yeah, you're right, I do. But before AEW came around, I'll admit the last few years I hadn't been watching a lot of main roster WWE programming. But there was one saving grace, and Triple H was involved. The original NXT. The black and gold, not the color explosion NXT 2.0. I'm talking about the original black and gold, where they were quietly churning out some of the best wrestling content of the last few years. 5-star matches galore. NXT takeovers for the longest time were must-see events. I watched almost all of them up until AEW launched. And even then, within the first few months of AEW launching, I watched the takeovers just about until they did the rebranding to NXT 2.0. Ended up finding out about a lot more wrestlers there because that was their strategy for the longest time, to bring in a lot of independent wrestlers into NXT back when Triple H was in charge of that first incarnation. And these shows were incredible. You had logical storylines. You had, on top of it all, great wrestling. And now so much of that NXT talent, that original NXT talent, some of it's made it up to the main roster and some has been extremely successful. But a lot of the later crop of NXT talent has found their way over, if not to just AEW, to other promotions. Impact, New Japan. Most of them went to AEW. And I'll even give you some examples. Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly. So you had the Undisputed Era, now the Undisputed Elite. Keith Lee, Swerve Strickland, now he used to be Karrion Kross, and Scarlett Bordeaux. They don't have a contract right now. They're just kind of showing up wherever they want to. William Regal. The list goes on and on. Oh, Neville. No, not Neville. Well, he's Pac now. I can't say the rest of his ring name because that would get me fired. Samoa Joe. The list goes on and on. There was a common joke, especially after NXT got rebranded to NXT 2.0, and they said, oh, we're no longer bringing in independent wrestlers. We're going to do everything in-house. That NXT ended up becoming developmental for AEW. And I'm not going to lie, there was a little bit of truth to that because a lot of AEW's current roster came from NXT, especially that original incarnation. I can't tell you how excited I am for Triple H to be taking charge of creative on the main roster. This means now that we are going to get much more compelling television, much better wrestling, much more logical storylines. Hopefully they get rid of that shaky cam. I've tried watching main roster WWE. I'll watch WrestleMania. I'll watch a handful of the other pay-per-views as well, depending on what the card's looking like. And that shaky cam I'll be honest, it makes me dizzy at times. And it just, to me, the shaky camera work was always unnecessary. It was just like, ooh, look, oh, they're falling. Oh, let me zoom out and back in really quick. And it was just, kind of threw me off, not gonna lie. And truth be told, I never really did stop watching WWE until this day. I watched a lot less of it because of my disgruntlements with how the main roster was being booked on TV and how it was being presented, but I never did stop watching. I've watched WrestleMania. I've watched a handful of the other pay-per-views, Hell in a Cell, Money in the Bank. We got SummerSlam coming up here this weekend. We got Ric Flair's last match coming up this weekend. It's going to be a great time. But this also means now that AEW is going to have to watch their backs. Why? I'm not saying that WWE is going to make a play and try to buy AEW. No. AEW is a little bit too big now for that. But the fact of the matter is, so many people who were getting misused back when Vince and his cronies were in charge of creative on the main roster jumped ship over to AEW. And it's no secret that some AEW talent has also not been used properly. They haven't been booked. There's been rumors of a lack of communication in AEW. Now that Triple H is in charge, when some of those contracts are up, it wouldn't be surprising in the least to me if a handful of those talents jumped over to WWE. We already saw one. We saw Cody Rhodes make the jump. So if anything, TK, I love you, bro. You have given us such a great product the last few years. There's room for improvement, especially on the backstage side of things. Get this together. Because right now, WWE may be on the verge of a renaissance. If they do this right, suddenly the E doesn't look like a nightmare to work in anymore now, does it? Especially if Hunter's in charge. I can't wait to see what this will bring. But this is also going to mean that we may be seeing some more, not direct competition between WWE and AEW. They're not competing head-to-head anymore. The Wednesday Night Wars have been over for a while now. But now you're going to have two companies, and with Hunter behind the helm, you can be assured that WWE wants to put on the best product possible. So does AEW. They want the eyes on the screens. They want people to spend the money on merch, to come to their shows, to invest in these companies, to invest in this talent. So do you know what this means for us, the wrestling fan base? This means that we're about to have a glorious era in professional wrestling. Two companies going tooth and nail to give us the absolute best product possible. Matchups that we hadn't even thought of yet are going to be on TV. Pay-per-views. It's going to be incredible. My wish, and it's been on my wish list now, and it's a little bit more likely, especially now that Hunter's in charge. If we can get a WWE and an AEW crossover show a la Forbidden Door, that would be not arguably, it's almost confirmed at this point, it would be the biggest selling wrestling pay-per-view in history. You could make it a 2-day event, put it in a huge stadium, put it in, let's say, like SoFi Stadium in LA, put it in Jerry World. Gross. The Cowboys. Ew. You'll sell that out. The media interest would be off the charts if this happened. I can't wait to see what this brings us. SummerSlam weekend just got a whole lot more interesting. And yes, we do have Ric Flair's last match in there as well. I'm loving the build for this. They released one final episode yesterday of the last match docuseries that they've been doing, where they did a contract signing, to make this match official. Ric Flair and Andrade El Idolo versus Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal with Karen Jarrett at ringside. I love the way that they presented this. Like, it's still very old school blood feud, and it was revealed they really went into like the past history each man had with Ric Flair. Obviously Andrade, part of the legacy now because he did marry Charlotte, but he's obviously a very accomplished wrestler in his own right. Jay Lethal actually got Ric Flair to tap out to the figure four. Ric Flair's signature move on pay-per-view back in the day. Jeff Jarrett and Ric Flair and the battles with the Horsemen and who is the Horseman and who isn't. Oh, that is a whole other suitcase to unpack right there. I said it on the last episode and I'll say it again. Please, for the producers of that event, spare no expense on EMTs. Have the best team of EMTs that you could possibly get your hands on in Nashville. Have them ringside. In the event something goes awry, they break into action in a split second. And that is it for today's show. But before I go, it's just going to be one last little thing here. This is a little bit of a heavier day for me. Not wrestling related. But on this day, 3 years ago, there was one person I had in my life who I consider to be the closest thing I ever had to an older brother. I lost him on this day. Before I got in here today, I went to the cemetery. I visited his grave. I'm happy they got a headstone, a bigger headstone for him. I had been thinking about this for years, but finally it was done. It was there. I was happy to see that. He always encouraged me to pursue what I was passionate about. He was one of the few people that knew that I wanted to do this show at a time when not a lot of people really did know. And he always said, hey, go out there, give it your all. Like, how long are you going to wait? And yeah, I'll admit, it took me a little bit longer than I expected. But he would tell me all the time, he'd be like, hey, Josh, like, I'm trying to do his voice. It's hard to do. This is in your blood, and you know it. So go do it. And you're right. Hey, Zeus, you're right, man. This business is in my blood. I've watched it since I was a little kid. I've been passionate about it ever since. And now I'm here doing this, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I hope, if you're up there, I hope you're proud, man, because I'm going to keep doing this. I miss you, man. I love you, man, and I'll see you again. And that was it for today's show. Feel free to follow the show on Insta and Twitter at Talking Smarks. You can follow me on Twitter at Wolfie Molina. This has been Talking Smarks, and this is AIM Student Radio, the way radio should be.